Yeah. We probably should have switched the cushions.
No, that's fine. That's cool.
All right, dude. Well, bam.
Jordan Roberts, welcome to the Backpocket podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, boys. How are you?
Phenomenal. We are stoked to have you on. I think we've built our 2.5 years for this very moment. Can you confirm, Deck?
Yeah, we had the requirements of getting Jordan Roberts on this podcast were first to build a strong foundation, and we did that. Marketing intern, listener by listener, podcast by podcast, guest by guest. But you had to build it the right way, right? That these guests couldn't just be anybody. They had to be St. Thomas football players. They had to be coaches. They had to be Glenn Caruso. They had to be
Chad Greenway.
They had to be Coach Wally Kaczynski. And now we're sitting here with the impetus of we've now reached our mic or our mark where we're at the peak. Jordan Roberts.
I appreciate it, boys. I've been wanting to get on for a long time. It's good to be finally on, man.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
I say we get right into it, man. We know you very well through playing ball with you, but our marketing interns, many of our listeners do not know you. So if you could give a brief background of who you are, that would be awesome.
Who I am? Awesome. So I grew up in the great state of Wyoming, Sheridan, Wyoming, rooted and grounded out there. Started playing football very, very early on in life, and it became a big part of my life growing up. Had a really good, successful high school career. Ended up getting a scholarship my senior year to play at South Dakota. It's a small Division I school in the Missouri Valley. Started out there, played 2.5 years there, and then I transferred to St. Thomas, where I met all my best friends here. And then played another 2 years there. Spent this last year in Seattle, scouting with the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow.
Just been kind of all over, man. Football's been a big part of it. I'm very close to my family, very close to my friends. Got 2 older sisters and parents who love me. I'm very close with them still. And, yeah, man, just kind of a crazy road up to this point. But here we are.
Yeah, those are the that's the Wikipedia version.
No doubt.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, what's really cool, I think, was that we had so many opportunities to get you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I just remember recording back at the original Washington 1.0, and we would be, like, in the studio recording a podcast, and it'd be, like, Jordan and Mark and Maddie C, and they'd be all playing NHL and just like screaming, and we'd be like, "Come on, dude!" Like you could hear it in the mics. It's so funny.
Or during the NFL draft too, when we were all screaming.
The draft was the greatest. Was because who'd you guys draft? Who'd the Bears draft that year?
We got Roquan Smith, and me and Greg were just losing it.
And then I pop out there just like, "What the fuck? Can you keep it down?"
Like, come on,
man,
guys.
That's crazy, dude. Wait, so I want to know so you were doing my research as your friend. You were Gatorade Player of the Year in Sheridan, Wyoming?
I was, yeah, my senior year. So I actually transferred high schools halfway through my junior year. My dad got a job engineering in Sheridan, which is a much smaller town than I grew up in Gillette, Wyoming. It was like 65,000. And Sheridan, Wyoming is 25,000-30,000. So it was a big drop down. In terms of like the size of my school and everything. But I decided to go with my dad, and that year I had like a really big year, my senior season. And Sheridan's a really unique place because like we have the smallest school in 4A. 4A is the highest division in high school football in Wyoming. We have the smallest amount of kids in our school, but we go to the state championship like every other year. So we have the most state championships in the state of Wyoming. And the year that I was there, we won our 23rd state championship. And
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that's my number, baby. So. Yeah.
Oh, you're number 2.
Oh, of course.
Very nice.
Yeah. So
that's sweet, dude. So you then, what were kind of your scholarship offers or any opportunities, I should say, coming out of high school?
So South Dakota was a Division I offer, and then Northern Colorado offered me as well. I kind of thought I was going to go to the University of Wyoming my whole upbringing.
Really?
And that fell out like last minute, and that was super disappointing because my whole family was getting Wyoming gear and stuff. So
really?
Oh yeah, that's where I thought I was going to end up, but last minute they decided not to pull the trigger, so went with South Dakota, and both of my sisters went to South Dakota too. They both swam there, so they were in swimming and diving. So we all three ended up going to USD. So
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So, dude, isn't the recruiting process just the worst thing ever?
Oh, it's bananas, man. It's like, especially in Wyoming, because you don't get as much exposure out there. It's not California or Florida, you know.
It's not a hot spot.
Yeah, it's not at all. So, you know, I rushed for almost 3,000 yards, and I still wasn't getting looks.
Gatorade Player of the Year in Wyoming, and
Mhm.
you didn't get an offer
Not a big time offer. You got some.
from Wyoming though, is what I'm saying.
No,
Like,
no,
even
no.
that.
Yeah, they had a really strict in-state policy. They just didn't want.
They
to
don't hire
sign.
the best talent.
I guess, yeah.
It's a strict rule if you're Wyoming. I don't know.
Yeah.
We go for low caliber players.
I don't make I don't make the rules around here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Outside of that one quarterback. What's his name?
Jared Allen.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Not Jared.
Sorry.
That's a Vikings D lineman.
Jared.
Jared
Dude. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And we don't know a lot about Vikings players at all still.
Yeah, we butchered that Chad Greenway podcast from time to time. For the most part, we.
I think we crushed the chat,
Okay,
but that's not that podcast, I guess. This is our podcast with Jordan.
you're right.
So,
But
anyways.
similarities, he went to he played 9-man football in South Dakota.
Yep.
And did not receive a Division I offer until
Mhm.
very late, and he got one from Iowa, and
Yeah.
that was the only one he got. And so it's that same kind of mentality from small rural areas in that northwestern part of
Yep.
the United States that doesn't get a lot of attention, even though those
Yep.
boys play with heart.
Play with heart, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're tough. And dude, Greenway is he's the man in South Dakota. Like everyone knows who Chad Greenway is, so he's the man out there.
Yeah. What's it like coming from because Chad, similar situation, but like, what is it like coming from a small town or collection of people? I mean, you said bigger city of Gillette, Wyoming. That's 65,000,
Yeah, it's
which
not
isn't
big.
even like a tenth of where we're living now.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what is that like?
It was a big shock, especially my first time coming to a big city. I guess you could classify this as the first city I came to after my upbringing, and it was kind of a shock just how different people are. Like in a town of Sheridan, Wyoming, it's like everybody knows everybody,
Yeah.
and like everyone's close to everyone, and you know like who your neighbor is, and if you're new in town, people are taking you out and getting to know you. And I love Minnesota. I think there's some really great people here. It was just like a culture shock, definitely. And like I've been to a bunch of cities since I've been to college, like Houston, Seattle, all these other places, Chicago, and it's different, man. Like especially in the Northwest, it's different out there, man. Like people are very kind of, I don't want to say closed off, but they do their own thing. Like if you're new in town, like you're not really gonna get to know new people.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
In the Pacific Northwest specifically.
Yeah, I would say especially in Seattle. Like, you know, I worked there for a year, and there's guys from all over the country who worked with the Hawks, and like they've been there for 2-3 years, and they still don't know that many people in Seattle. It's just like how it goes.
They're on business type thing.
Yeah, like you hang out with the people you work with, and that's kind of the culture up there.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Dang.
just interesting.
So take me back to playing at South Dakota. I'm really curious on the aspect of playing at a lower Division I school. What was the mentality of the team? Were people ready to transfer? Were they playing to look for transfer offers, or were they dedicated to that? Because I hear a lot of when you're playing that conference, you're looking to have a good season and then go to a bigger school.
Yeah, that kind of depends. You definitely had those type of guys that usually didn't make it. But the guys that were at South Dakota, in my situation, everyone was pretty bought in to be there. But you did have like your guys who like transferred in from like a bigger school. So like Illinois State is an example. They're in the Missouri Valley.
Mm-hmm.
They get transfers from big schools like all the time, from like Auburn, Alabama. People that like don't make it there, they go back down a division so they don't have to sit out a year, right?
Okay.
And then they do well, and maybe they'll transfer again after that. But at South Dakota, it was, you know, everyone is pretty dead set on staying there from my experience. But you did have a couple guys that thought they were like a lot better than that. So they wanted to kind of go somewhere else, but they usually didn't end up making it. So
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm also then really curious on your take from it. So you got to play, correct me, you redshirted freshman year.
I did, yeah.
And then you played a full season, and then you started looking at other options.
Well, not really, man. So I redshirted. Sorry.
No, I
Not really,
you.
Andrew.
Yo,
He's your best friend, and you can't figure it out.
hey,
Just kidding.
sometimes you forget.
I didn't
Alright,
want to
keep going.
correct you. There.
No,
No, that was
You
just
need to
that was
correct
great.
me.
That was great.
Yeah.
Continue.
So
Not really, man.
my bad.
No, that was fun.
So redshirt year, was great. And then I pretty much started with another kid my freshman year, my redshirt freshman year. We split time the whole year. Nice.
Sounds really cool in the mic.
And then the second year, so my redshirt sophomore year, I played that whole season. But that was the year I started looking into going into seminary. But I wasn't necessarily unhappy at South Dakota. I was like doing really good. I played as a freshman, had a lot of stuff going for me there.
Played against Oregon, right?
Played against Oregon,
So
played
sick.
against Mariota. That year they went to the Natty, actually, so that was a really fun year.
Was Bakivius Mingo on that team?
Barkevius Mingo played for LSU, buddy.
And he also plays for the Hawks now.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, he's cool.
Again, just botching my football knowledge. Yeah.
So that year, I wasn't really looking to go just to transfer anywhere. So the seminary was a very unique situation where I looked into it, and it was something that if it worked out, I was going to go, but if it didn't, I was just going to stay at South Dakota. And I even told my coach that I was looking into this during the process. So he was fully aware of everything. And the decision to join the seminary was there was a lot more involved than just football, obviously. But it was just really cool the way it all worked out, because I was able to get the okay to be able to play football when I was still in seminary, which was really unique. It's like probably the only school in the world that you could do that. So,
At St. Thomas is what you're saying.
at St. Thomas and St. John Vianney Seminary is the seminary I was looking into. And it was just a unique situation because they have a really good football program, and the seminary is a part of the school. So for me, it was like, wow, I could do both. I could really focus on my faith and my walk with God, but I can also finish my eligibility. So that was really attractive to me, and I asked my vocations director if I could do that, and he was like, heck yeah. So after that, it was like an easy decision. So I applied, and when I got in, I was able to actually transfer halfway through the year. So I transferred in January, so I could play like spring ball and stuff with St. Thomas during 2015. So,
I remember the first workout that we had where Caruso was introducing like the new people, and you came in with Tommy Becker.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, no way. 2 new coaches just showed up.
Yeah.
This is great. Like, we got this guy and this guy. And you're like, oh, actually, that other guy, he's from South Dakota. He's going to be your running back, and he is in the seminary. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. And that's kind of where I really want to, like that is just such a unique
Mm-hmm.
part of your life, man. I'd love to know
No doubt.
and kind of dive in on, like, what got you into seminary?
Yeah, man, a lot of stuff. But so when I went to South Dakota, I didn't grow up Catholic, and my family, we weren't necessarily affiliated with any type of church or anything growing up, and we didn't even really go to church that often.
Yeah, were you, like, religious at all? Or were you
I was, like, personally. So
Okay.
I called it, kind of an interpersonal Christian faith,
Right.
whatever you want to call that. But I always had a relationship with God. Like, I always felt close to him growing up, especially in my senior year in high school. I started praying a lot more than I ever had before. But when I went to South Dakota, there was a Bible study on my team that a bunch of people were going to. But I heard it was like a Catholic Bible study, so I was like, I'm not going. So I didn't go to it. And then halfway through my freshman year is when some kind of unfortunate things happened, not kind of very unfortunate things happened. And the biggest thing was my best friend named Nicholas Bazemore. He passed away halfway through my freshman year.
No way.
And it was just, I mean, this is like my best friend. I mean, he was like a brother to my family. And we spent all of our time growing up together ever since kindergarten, pretty much. And so when he passed away, it was like, it like totally changed everything about me.
Oh.
Yeah. And right before that, me and my girlfriend of 6 or 7 years, I think it was 7 years, we broke up right before that. So this happened within like 24 hours.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. So
Oh.
it was like we had a really nasty breakup, and then when Nick passed, it was like I got to do something because I was just a mess after that, obviously. So after that, I decided to like give this Bible study a try, you know. So I started going to this Bible study, and it's through this organization called Focus, and it's Fellowship of Catholic University Students. So it's a Catholic-based Bible study for college students, pretty much. And they're getting really, really big across the country right now. But we were one of like the first schools that it was at, and it was like a football-based Bible study. And the first night I went, it was just like I totally fell in love with it. Like this is amazing. I can't believe like I was so like negative towards this before, and I just kind of opened myself up. And then afterwards, I talked to the guys who were leading the Bible study. Shout out to Jeremy Cassidy and Shane Van Dies, but they really kind of taught me about Catholicism for the first time. And I was really negative towards Catholicism, but then I like really opened myself up to it, and I was interested. That's the best way I can say it.
I want to ask though, like, so, you know, like the barrier to entry, I guess, when you're looking at like going to a Bible study, that is like inherent. That a lot of people feel that, but
no doubt.
When you get there and you're in that situation that you are, which is just like, for more or less like a rock bottom type situation,
totally.
right? Like, what were the things, or why was it so impactful when you showed up for that Bible study for the first time?
I think it was the first time that I ever shared with other people where I was at. It was the first time I was like vulnerable for the first time, and I shared with them what was going on in my life, and they didn't judge me. They didn't try to tell me what to do. They were just like there for me.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me. And like I had been to other Bible studies before, and it felt very artificial to me, like surface level. And this Bible study really dove in deep to the scriptures, and that was something that I was really longing for. And so that first study, I was like, this is what I gotta keep doing. So that was kind of like what kept me grounded during that really tough time. And I still played football, and I was still doing really good, and that kind of like kept my mind off things and stuff. But the Bible study and those friends that I had during that time were just huge for me. So
That is sick.
yeah. So fast forward a year after that, I just kept growing in my faith, and I ended up going to a Seek conference. And I'm sure you've never heard of a Seek conference, but it's basically these huge conferences that go on in January every year, where about 15,000 college students go to this conference, and this one was in Orlando. And they have all these famous speakers from around the world that, you know, spiritual speakers.
Mm.
And they come and they share their testimonies, and they talk to us about certain aspects of faith. And I went there and just like got my world rocked, dude. I just like, I like learned stuff that I didn't even know were possible. So
I gotta ask you about that though. Like, what is it about like testimonies? Because like they are super impactful. I'll be honest.
They are.
Like, it's very cool. I mean, just boiling it down, it's just like someone telling their kind of faith journey on how they like found God. But really, ultimately, it's like them telling like they're just getting vulnerable with you, to be honest, and just like telling you a time it was tough and how they got back. But like, what do you think is like? It's probably not one thing, but like, what is it? Why are testimonies so great? I don't know. It's crazy.
That's a great question. I think the power of a person's story just affects people in a different way than just like an informational.
Yes.
You know, I always thought like learning in a classroom was always difficult for me because it was always informational. But like if someone gets up and tells me their story, I'm just like locked in. you know. So I think there's just a difference there because it's more personal, and it's just unique. Everyone's got their own unique story, right? So I don't know. I've never really been big on just more informational talks. I never felt like that affected me more, but I think everyone's different too. In this conference in particular, what really affected me was like how happy everyone was around me. It was just like everyone was so joyful, and I was like not happy at that time. I was like, get away from me. I want to be in my own little bubble, you know, like I don't want to talk to you. And everyone was just so joyful. And it really rubbed off on me. And at the end of it, I came away from that conference like, man, there's some things that I learned that I really want to take with me. And when I went back, it's like, I really want to change my life. And that was kind of the start of everything that changed for me. So,
dude,
yeah.
That's like, so take me through that now. Like,
Okay.
I want to know, like, you can't just say, yeah, change my life.
That's a cliffhanger.
Change my life. All right.
Yeah,
Well, that was a good podcast. Thank you, Jerry. No, I'd love to know, like, what were those kind of next steps? Like, I mean, obviously you get to St. Thomas and there's the logistical things that we know, but like, what were kind of those steps that, you know, mentally, emotionally, like you took to change your life? Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing was when I went back, I started really looking into different religions. When I went back to South Dakota, I looked into Catholicism, different types of Christianity, even other religions too. I was just like really an open book, and I started looking into everything. And I started meeting with a priest. His name is Father Jeff Norfolk, and he kind of taught me all like what Catholicism was, like front to back of the catechism. And he basically just answered all my questions. I had all these questions about Mother Mary. I had all these questions about like different aspects of the Catholic faith that just made no sense to me. And he was just very calm, very patient with me, and just answered all my questions. And it took about 1.5 years of like continuing to go to Bible study, started going to Mass. I started, you know, meeting with Father Jeff, and eventually I found that was the truth for me in terms of what Christ wanted in terms of Christianity in the world. And obviously there's a lot of things wrong with it in today's world, but I think Christ's initial plan and vision for Christianity is what Catholicism is, and that's my belief. And when I came to that conclusion, I decided to become Catholic, and I got confirmed and baptized into the church because I actually wasn't baptized when I was a kid. So when I got baptized, my whole football team was there that day, which was like a really, really cool thing. That was a cool witness for them, and for me too. My family came up for it and everything. And so I became Catholic, and then it was 3 or 4 months later is when I started looking into going to seminary. So this was my sophomore season, and I was playing good that year, and everything, and like football was continuing, and it was okay. But I really just felt like drawn to like take it to the next level. I wanted to just like really dive in. I was pretty on fire for it. And that was the draw, to look into seminary. And then when everything just like kept falling together with that, I just knew it was God's will for me to like take that step. So I made the decision, like, you know, you're going to walk away from the D1 life and, you know, the image and everything that entails. And I'm going to go here and, you know, really dive deep into my faith and play football too. But football
with these knuckleheads.
Yeah, with these
They
knuckleheads.
show up and you got a couple like Q-tip looking idiots. Hey, Jordan. How you doing, Jordan? Hey, welcome to the St. Thomas football team. How you doing?
Yeah, man. So, yeah, that was the decision behind it. That's kind of the backstory. So
that's super freaking cool, man.
Yeah.
I love how you said level up, and I'm like thinking in the back of my head, and you already touched on it, was just like he's leveling up, but he's like going down to D3 football.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like in your own life, like you're honestly looking at that as a leveling up because you really, really wanted to pursue your faith, man. Like that is so cool.
Well, thank you, man.
That you can make that sort of decision at what, 23 at the time or 22?
I was only 21 at the time.
21. There you go. Like
so.
Good for you, man.
Thank you, man.
That's awesome. So then catapulting from there.
Yeah.
Walk me through I mean, you could go many different ways from here, right?
Yeah.
There was so much that happened, and your story has some awesome tidbits for a lot of listeners to take away from. I'm curious on your initial. You're walking into the seminary school. You have this passion, this urge to learn more, to embrace this culture, this community. What was kind of like the first few weeks, the first few months of how you felt, and like the reflection period now 4 years later? How'd that go?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think what drew me to the seminary in the first place was like the brotherhood and community in the seminary. So you're living with 130 other guys who are like actively pursuing their faith and being the best person they can be. I was like all about that. And so when I first got there, I was just like on cloud 9, because not only am I around all these phenomenal human beings with a great formation staff, with priests who are really living in truth, which was awesome, but I'm also part of this football team that is, in my opinion, doing it the right way. I think Caruso's really created a special program where guys are becoming the best versions of themselves, right? We hear that all the time. But it was like everywhere I was going, it was like you're just around phenomenal people. And I was just like on cloud 9, obviously. But I was really drawn to the discipline aspect of seminary. I'm like a very discipline-oriented dude. You guys know that. And so like, getting up and going to holy hour at 5:30 in the morning, I was like attracted to that. Not many people would like want to go do that, but like I was all about it. And like going to mass every single day, contemplation of scripture, going through the scriptures and reading spiritual books, and just being around that atmosphere was like so cleansing for me, because I grew up and my identity was always wrapped up in football, right? I was always Jordan the football player.
Mr. Gatorade Player of the Year, D1 player,
exactly,
etc.
And that was how I associated myself too, and I didn't even know it at the time. And even during my time in seminary, I still did that, and it took a long time for me to like unpack that and realize how deeply rooted that was. And it was only recently where my identity started to flip from Jordan the football player to Jordan, a beloved son of God. And that is where my identity has changed. And I think a very important distinction is God loves you for who you are, not for what you do. And that's what I learned through seminary and just through even time after that. It doesn't necessarily matter as much what you do, and we live in such a results based society right now. But the key thing for me was learning that he loves me for who I am. And even in our friend group, you look at our friend group, and it's a really, really special friend group that we have, because we all care for one another for like who we are as people. It's not necessarily I love you because you have a Backpocket podcast. We love each other for who we are. And that's what makes our friendship so strong, and why everyone in our friend group right now is organically kind of finding out who they are, and finding their way, because there's a purity there, there's a love there that's not results based, and it's not like about what you do, but it's about who we are as people.
Who we're becoming.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I was telling you last night. I was just like, I love the situation and like the time that we're in right now. Like we're awesome. All single, like whatever. Yeah. Cool. That's one thing. But like we're all living in this parallel like upward trajectory, and it's so obvious, and it's so cool to like literally week to week go and having these different conversations with like
no doubt
all my friends, and now you being back in town and seeing what you want to do and everything. It's just like, it's a testament, man. You're totally right.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. And I think that was the biggest change for me when I moved here, was that these people around me are caring about me, not because I'm this great football player or doing these things, but they care about me for who I am. And that was kind of the start of change for me in my life. So caring about you for who you are. Because at first, Jordan, we've had this conversation. You walked into the locker room, and I heard that you came from South Dakota, played, and everyone was talking about how you played against Oregon and all this stuff. And I'm sitting
ran for like 100 yards against Oregon.
Exactly. And then I'm sitting there in my locker, like, who's this fucking guy
Who is
coming
this
in
guy?
here thinking he's going to be better than us? We work harder than anyone in the country. I don't care who he is. We're going to outperform him. He's going to get weeded out
Oh,
just
yeah.
like everyone else does.
Just like all the other D1 transfers that
yeah.
like don't
Don't
pan
out here because
same kid,
we're
whatever.
just different.
Yeah.
And we played spring ball together and then went to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to know each other through spring ball, and then truly got to know each other in Italy. And
yeah.
I mean, from there on, it's been true. One of the more influential relationships I've ever had with a friend, because the age difference that we have is 4 years. Yet it feels like we're like you're my older brother's age. So it's like I've always looked at all my older brother's friends as like, oh, that's someone who's so off in the distance type of thing.
Yeah.
And like you just have this aura about you where when you're around, when people are around you, they're the most important people. And like just getting to know you through that way is just like the coolest thing. I'm like, I get to be around Jordan Roberts. But at the same time, he cares about every single time you're in the situation with him, he cares about those people. And I just loved seeing that in first person, and then also in third person when I was just like standing around seeing you interact with all the different communities that you were investing so much time and energy in. Yeah. And that is one of the coolest things of how you were able to deviate your time and maximize, or rather optimize, both of those situations.
I appreciate it, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really fun time, man. And like I just remember I actually remember the first time I ever saw you. I was like, this dude's got a Chicago Blackhawks shirt on. I was like, we might be friends. And I started talking to you. You were a Hawks fan, and you like the Steelers, obviously, but from Chicago. And I remember just like loving this way about you. You were just like really straight up and blunt. And like when I found out like you were on the Italy trip, it was just like, let's go. I'm gonna like get to know this dude. Mm-hmm. And you know, me, you, Shark, and Maddie, and just like that whole trip was just like really special, man. Like, and it really culminated the day we went out cliff diving, dude. That was just like the time I was like, this is gonna be a special thing moving forward.
Kayaking together
yeah.
and just yelling at each other. You're wrong. No, you're wrong. We were coming in dead. A couple of beefcakes on a kayak, coming in dead last.
Just like overcorrecting the whole time.
It was hilarious.
That's
brutal.
Like, as a third party listener to this conversation of a couple guys who work out and are kayaking. Not shocking, to be honest. Not shocking that this played out the way it did. Yeah, to be honest.
Exactly.
But that trip was able to like kickstart your kind of your community involvement with St. Thomas football, and then you also had the seminary school. Mm-hmm. So and then from then you were able to become the Division III Football Player of the Year as a running back, and had an awesome season. And we could talk about that for hours, mm-hmm. But I'd rather kind of transition to later in your career when you've had another situation where you got you got punched in the face.
Yeah, man, no doubt.
Where you had to hang up the cleats due to injuries. And as you were just mentioning, football, football was defining you. You allowed football to define you, and then you found another outlet eventually. However, walk me through kind of those stages, or that stage in your life.
Dude, you hit it spot on. Definitely got punched in the mouth. And even up to that point, I remember so much of like who I thought I was and the identity that I had for myself was still wrapped up in in football, in the process and not the orientation, but the results that I got. I was so wrapped up in all that, and I wanted to like please coach. I wanted to like please the team, and always be like that dude was, who was leading the team to like, national championship or whatever. But that year I was really burnt out even at the start. And I was coming off a knee injury. And I just,
was this your senior year, by the way?
Yeah, senior year.
So our senior year.
Yep. And I was just, I was really tired, man. I've been doing this for a long time, and I just felt exhausted all the time. And, when I got knocked out of that game against Concordia, and I was just like, I literally went unconscious. I don't know if I ever told you guys, but I was unconscious for like 12 hours when I went to the hospital with my parents. And I woke up and I'm like in my pad still, and it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm in the hospital, and I had no idea how I got there. And it was just like literally a punch in the mouth. And after that, I was like, is this something I want to continue to do? And that was the start of the process of like really defining who I am. You know, what's your why? We talk about that all the time. And, you know, it was a really tough time for me to like let go of this thing that I've cherished for so long. You know, I was 24 at the time. And like this football is so important to me. It was like my life, man.
Football was all of our lives.
It was.
And like that, the sad reality, and it's finite game.
It totally
it's
is.
A finite game.
It is. And that was just really tough for me to accept. And there was things that I wrapped up about my own identity that I wasn't even aware of. And after that, it was like, who are you? Like, who's Jordan without football, right? And it was the best. It was tough and difficult, but it was the best process I ever went through, because now I know exactly who I am without the game of football. Football is a part of, you know, what I do still, and I enjoy it, but it's not who I am. It's not my identity. It's not even my purpose in life is not football, you know? And so I think coming to St. Thomas and going through that process was so huge for me. I think that's why I didn't, you know, have another huge season after 2015. God wanted me to like really learn the most important lesson in my life. And who is Jordan without football? And I learned that through that process, and it was hard. It was difficult. And, but through time it happened. And, you know, even this last year working in Seattle, I'm sure we'll, you know, talk about that. But even then, stuff continued to come up about like how you identify yourself with football. And now it's so much different now. And this last year was huge for me. And I don't know if you guys still want to talk about, you know, St. Thomas, but
No, I love, well,
yeah.
like, let's just go there. So like, I mean, you physically get knocked out of a game, and like I had no idea that you went unconscious for 12 hours. That's so nuts.
I know. I didn't really tell many people that. It was my fourth concussion, but this one was like a nasty one, and the doctors like couldn't even tell me what to do after that. They're like, if you get another one, I don't know how long you'll be knocked out and stuff like that. So it was just like there's too many loose ends, and like so that was kind of the main decision to stop.
It's pretty
playing.
clear.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
Quite frankly.
Yeah,
but I
hear
mean,
you.
like, I mean, we finished that season out for what it's worth, and you know, it's over at that point.
Yeah.
And, you know, you get this opportunity, because I like being your friend, knowing you're going through seminary, and you know, being an active, having that as your active practice. But dude, you were so head in the film. Like, you were still watching so much football.
I know.
And so, you know, even though football wasn't, you weren't physically playing football, you're still working out, you're still watching a ton of tape, and it was pretty obvious, like, okay, this kid wants to become like a scout. This kid wants to be a coach or something. Like, you still wanted your life incorporating football. So like, kind of walk me through that process, and then obviously getting this sweet opportunity with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks.
Yeah, that was fun. So that last year was difficult, because like I was transitioning out of the seminary. I knew I didn't want to continue on in seminary formation at that time. So it was like, okay, what now? And you know,
well, what, like, can we touch on that a little bit? Like, what got you to St. Thomas was seminary, but like when you graduated, seminary wasn't necessarily in the picture. So what was the
so I think the big thing was that the people who were ahead of me, my formation director and my spiritual director, Father Kelly, you guys know Father Kelly, and we all didn't feel like moving on was the right thing for me. And it was a unanimous decision, and it was even unanimous with my diocese that I was studying for too. And no one really felt like going on was like the best thing for me. And it was a decision to really get into like having a job and like serving other people was the main desire behind that, because I had never had a job up until that point. I always just trained for football. So I was like, well, I want to do something involved in football. You know, I want to either get into coaching or scouting. And just through contacts that I had around even the Twin Cities, with Matt Burke and Brooks Bollinger and Rich Gannon and, you know, Willie Schneider, and all these people just really helped me see that like scouting is something that I would really enjoy. So I started getting my information out to like everyone in the league, and Willie really kind of helped me prep for the interviews and stuff. And Willie's a full-time scout with the Seahawks now. He's been there 5 years, and he helped me get involved and get my name out there and stuff. And I got an interview with the Cardinals. That went really well. I didn't end up getting the job, but then the Seahawks had a job like opening pop up like super late in the process, and they brought me out for an interview. I remember Willie calling me. It was after I got let know by the Cardinals that I wasn't going to get the job, so I was like, okay, what's the next thing? I didn't think I was going to end up being in the NFL that year. And Willie called me. He's like, you're not going to believe this, but we have a spot open. We want to bring you out for an interview. And I was just like so jacked, man. I was like, this is the Hawks. Like, this is one of my favorite teams. Legion of Boom. Like, let's go. Seattle's dope. And then I went up there and ended up getting the job after a really good interview with them. And it felt right. Like, I prayed about it a lot, and it felt like that was the path I was supposed to go at the time. And that year was just awesome, man. It was like so fun being in the NFL. Growing up, I was obsessed with the NFL. So like, I felt like a kid in the candy store for like the first 3 months. I was like, I can't believe I'm like here in the draft room, and behind the enemy lines, and like, on the inside of all these big decisions being made. It was just so fun.
And then you're also in our fantasy football league, which is like, to be honest, quite unfair.
I mean, yes and no, but like, how do you know how good a player is going to play on a Sunday?
I don't know. If you watch 70 hours of film on him, you might have a better idea than the kid who gets drunk on the weekends.
Yeah, it started off actually kind of rough, and then pulled it together late. But
did you win last year? I don't even remember.
No,
okay.
I got.
Oh, Andy won.
This man won. Yeah,
This kid.
I'm coming for your head this year,
I know,
boy.
everyone is.
All right, we don't need to talk like that about fantasy football, but no, that's crazy, dude. So like a kid in the candy store, I freaking love that, man.
It was so fun.
You freaking walk on campus. I mean, do you get to like partake in all of the different like facilities? Do you get to like work out in the same facilities, eat at the same cafeteria?
Yeah, all of
dude.
It, man. It was awesome. So like
hang out with all the players.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're on the players like all the time. So the facility that we train and work at, like, it's players, scouts, and coaches all in one building. So like you eat there, you work out there, you work there, and all the players are coming in and out all the time. And it's just like a huge, massive NFL workout facility, and 3 huge practice fields. You have an indoor practice field, and it's legit, man. It's what you would expect out of like the NFL. It's like the real deal. So being around that environment was just like I said, it was just fun, like all the time. I was just cheesing. So,
that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And your exact role was being the area scout director?
No. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you got to correct me. My research is
it's all good. So
flawed.
We were basically scouting interns. There was 3 guys that were in the same role, and our job was basically making sure everything was up to date around the offices. So every coach and scout has like their own depth chart and their board, and we're in charge of like making magnets and making sure depth charts are always updated. And my office was actually in the draft room. So in the draft room, you have a bunch of information in there. Every wall is a whiteboard, and you have magnets of like every team and a bunch of different strategies and stuff like that. So I was constantly updating that. And then our main role as like first year scouts was taking care of players when they came in. So when a free agent player would come in, we'd pick them up, take them to their physical, hang out with them, make sure they see the coaches and the scouts and everybody, take them out to dinner, all that stuff. So like I got to know a bunch of the guys that we brought in, which was, in my opinion, the funnest part, because you get to just hear different stories from all around the league, and a lot of these guys have been a bunch of different teams. So you just hear about how other teams do their thing and how we do our thing, and all the differences there, and it's just really cool to hear different perspectives. And
was there anyone in particular that you vibed with?
Oh yeah, a bunch of guys. Bobby Wagner was the first dude that I met, first player that I met when I went there and like had breakfast with him the first day. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like,
Yeah, that's awesome.
This is
He's
the best
one of the only
linebacker.
99 guys on Madden this year.
Yeah, dude. 1 of 4.
Oh, yeah.
1 of 4.
He's the real deal.
Your man from Chicago.
Yeah, Khalil.
Khalil's in there, and 2 other guys. Can't remember.
Hopkins and
another defense.
Donald.
Yep.
Of course, Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
So,
499 players.
uh,
Madden knows best.
Yeah.
I guess. Sure. That's awesome. Good for them.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm agreeing. Madden does know best. I just think it's so funny that headlines now are what the ratings are of players on like a game that's like made up.
Yeah.
So, anyways, just dudes playing on the field.
Yep.
Whatever. I love it. Anyways, Bobby Wagner.
So Bobby was really, really cool. He's just like, he knows everyone in the building and treats everyone really well. A couple other guys, Malik Turner's a receiver, who I got to know really well. He's actually best friends with Gabe Green. They went to high school together. So
No way.
Shout out Malik Turner. And then just, different guys throughout the team. I mean, I like talked with all of them. I don't necessarily know if I got like super close with anybody, but
We were close again. Brett Hundley on this podcast.
dude, I was tight with Brett. Brett's a really good man, really good person.
Is he still on the Seahawks?
No, he's with the Cardinals now.
Cardinals,
So yeah, he got let go and went to AZ this offseason. But he was a really, really cool dude. Tyler Lockett's an awesome guy. He just knows everybody and is super chill and, just knows everyone's name in the building, which is awesome. And, you have like your guys who are kind of in their own little lane and, they don't necessarily talk to a whole lot of people. But then you have your other players on the team who are, they know the kitchen staff and the people upstairs and the scouts. And those people are just really awesome because they're not necessarily like the big time. They don't big time you and they get to know you and stuff off the field. So you really appreciate those dudes because,
absolutely.
they're just good people. So.
Yeah, that's one thing that we quickly realized with Chad Greenway coming in. Like, obviously, growing up, loving the game of football.
Yeah.
That being our lives, our main focus. When you have someone of that caliber walk in, like, we could have easily just been, like, goo-goo eyes, just awe and over him. And I think we did our best at just, like, looking at him as just, like, this guy who's accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
He's just got he's a great dude.
No doubt.
We were able to share a conversation with that mentality, and that was one of the coolest things. Like, they're studs, they're elite athletes, but they're also just got these killer personalities that if you treat them as such, you get that out of them.
Yeah, dude, and that's the temptation in the NFL is like, this guy's a stud, and it's like you don't think that they would like ever open up to you, but they're good people, man. Like, these guys are really, really good people. Like, I remember the first time I talked to Russell Wilson, and it's like the temptation is to treat him like that's just this, like, superstar.
Untouchable.
Yeah, but he's a person. He's a really good person. So it's cool to be able to, like, connect with those guys. So.
Yeah. And that's, same thing with Chad, too. It was just like the second we met the guy, he just wanted to be one of the guys.
Yeah.
Like, anytime he, like, told a story, it was just like, you guys get it. Like, you guys played football just as much as I did. Like, we're like, oh, not as much, Chad. But, like, it was really cool that, like, he was just, like, so humble and aware enough to just, like, bring himself down to that level consistently and just goes exactly to your point. And I feel like that just takes you so much further in life, I would hope, just having that sort of awareness and mentality. So the season ends.
Yeah.
What happens at that point? You're still grinding. Like, how many hours a week are you working during the season versus the off season?
So the in season is like the chill time for scouts, believe it or not. Yeah. Not for the college scouts. So the college scouts are out on the road year round, and they're going to every school throughout the season and going to games and meeting players. But if you're a pro scout, and I was like more on the pro side in office, you're doing stuff week to week, but it's not near as busy as after the season. So after the season, you're locked in the draft room and you're watching tape on like every college player that's a prospect for you. And you're setting your draft board and you're, ranking players and interviewing them, and you got to go to the Senior Bowl, the Combine, and even some other all-star games that not as many people know about. But so you're constantly interviewing players, you're watching tape, you're going to see these guys in person, and that's like when scouts make their money, that's their Super Bowl. Like, the draft is our Super Bowl. So
Dang.
you spend 3 months getting ready for the draft, and when that day comes, you got to be ready, man. So that's like the day of days for scouts.
Jeez.
It's a
That's
grind.
so nuts.
It's
Yeah.
3 months of work for one day. So
3 months of work for one day.
yeah.
How would you grade your team's performance, like from the front office?
We had a phenomenal draft this year.
Nice.
Absolutely crushed it. So we started the draft with 4 picks and we ended with 9. So we traded back multiple times in the first, traded back in the second, and we still ended up with a bunch of players that we really wanted. And the more we traded back, the more flexibility we had to get, move up and down the draft board. I think we had like 6 trades. I want to say 5 or 6 trades. So John Schneider is our GM, and huge shout out to John. I just love that man. He's one of the greatest human beings I've met.
Is he a St. Thomas alum?
He is.
That's right.
So him and Willie both went to St. Thomas. And John is just an amazing person. The way he can communicate with so many different people in the building and keep everything together, and just the decisions that he makes, and he's always so like calm, cool, and collected even under pressure. He's doing what he should be doing. He's like a GM, in the league, and it's just so cool to watch him go to work. And I learned so much from John. And John and I actually, and Willie went to mass a couple of times during the season. They come from a Catholic family, so it was just like really cool to have to get to know these people off the field. And I spent a ton of time with them, obviously. So that was like my biggest takeaway, was like getting to know Willie, getting to know John, the other scouts on the staff. I'm just like so thankful for their presence in my life, because they're just really good people, man. Really good people.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So then after that big day, the draft day, which is,
Mhm.
technically 2 or 3 days, but
Mhm.
what happened after that? You're back here now, so
Yeah.
just curious, like how did it all kind of shake out? Because it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's ruthless.
It's ruthless,
Oh,
cutthroat.
dude. Yeah, it's a cutthroat business. So I did a really good job throughout the season, and they told me I did a great job. It was mainly a business decision in the end, and that's like the best way I can really describe it.
Yeah.
But they wanted to go in a different direction in terms of personnel on staff. Football is going a lot more towards analytics and stuff like that. And I think that they just wanted to do the internship a little differently next year than what they did this year. And usually they have movement ahead of like the first year scouts. So like first year scouts are usually groomed for a higher up position, but that no one on our staff like left this year, which is not always the case. Usually there's like a spot that opens up.
Yeah.
But this year there wasn't, and it was a business decision, man. Like, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
So I was obviously really upset because I wanted to stay there. I felt really close with those guys, but at the end of the day, like, I was like incredibly thankful for that opportunity, man. So
Yeah.
it was a blast. I loved it.
So now you took that experience, and now you're freaking back here in the
Yeah,
saddle,
baby.
baby.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So
Yeah.
it was funny. I was asking you last night. Like, obviously, you're St. Thomas St. Thomas you're St. Thomas running backs coach now.
Mhm.
Super excited for you to join the team, of course.
Me too, bro. It's gonna be fun.
But I was talking to you last night. You were like, I was like, so like, what do you want to do long term, Jordan? Like,
Yeah.
what's the move? And you're like, I want to change the world. I was like, dude, I love that. So
Thanks,
I want
man.
to walk through that, man. What's it all about?
No doubt. So obviously I'm coaching football this year, and that'll be big for me to be able to really fill out coaching and scouting to see if it's something I want to pursue long term.
Mm-hmm.
But the ultimate goal for me is to, number one, follow God's will. And I think I really want to be able to be in public speaking and ministry full time. And I don't know how that's going to manifest down the road. But I really want to help restore identity in people. And I want to really help I want to help restore human dignity. That's my biggest thing. And I think that's something that's really lacking in our society right now. I want people to know that they're loved, that they're cherished, and I want to help protect people's dignity, and I want people to see how like incredible they are and how every single person is just like an absolute miracle. And I want to help, promote change in those areas. I don't know how it's going to happen or what God's going to do with that, but I want men especially. I think there's a serious lack of manhood in our society right now. And I want men to be firm in their identity. So the word male, the word male actually means to remember. And for me, I want to help men remember who they are. And I think men were made to be fathers. I think men are made to protect and to love and to serve other people. I firmly believe that. And to give of yourself, that's what men are created for. I think that's how God designed us, how he created us. To give of ourselves and to love other people as Christ loved the church. That's what St. Paul tells us in the book of Acts. It says, men, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And what did Christ do for the church? We are the church. Christ died for us. So I want men to learn how to die to themselves and how to come out of themselves. But, it all starts, with your own walk. Like, you have to be able to live that too. So I'm actively working on that, actively working on how do I serve other people? How do I love? What is love? So I'm like really trying to learn right now and grow in my faith, but I want to promote human dignity and fatherhood especially. And I want men to be who they're created to be, and I want women to be who they're created to be. And I'm really passionate about that. Again, I don't know how it's going to manifest down the road. We'll see. Right now I'm coaching football. I'm going to give that my all. And it's just another way for me to help people and serve. And I was much more drawn to coaching because you can really help develop people. So it's going to be
You're like
fun.
more on the front lines of, making men.
Yeah,
especially on the football field.
Seriously, yeah. And that's definitely the draw to coaching. I see how Caruso is affecting men, and it's incredible, and he's helping men become men and like boys become men. And it's just really, it's a special program. It's a special place, but like I could totally see myself in a role like that,
Yeah.
Helping men see their dignity and their value and their worth, and teaching men how to become fathers. So that's what I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at the Backpocket season 3, season 2, season 1, all of the guys that we've had on that played St. Thomas football and all of their stories, I mean, truly embody Coach Caruso-isms and what he is helped us kind of helped us craft our brains in a way that you can take anything from that. You can look at that position in a negative way because it's very intense and it's very one-sided, and there's things that you could go down this rabbit hole of negativity, absolutely, and people do. But from Declan and I's perspective, we loved every second of it because we had the opportunity to look for all the good and all the stuff that you can take away and be like, I can be a better person because of this.
No doubt. And
there are so many things he just pushes you to look inward. And that is the coolest thing, from Coach Caruso to Coach Walsh and Coach Kaczynski. All of those men were just so pivotal in the Backpocket's creation and Declan and I's growth. And we were able to share that together is one of the coolest things. And now you're having this focus of trying to do the same, to return that same thing to the next generation. And that fires me up.
It does, man.
Because there's so many different ways you can go about it. And I love how you already said on a few occasions, I don't know how this is going to look, but this is what I want to do. And right now I have an opportunity to practice it.
Yep.
And because we know you're going to succeed in whatever you want to do. And it doesn't have to become, again, what we say, it doesn't have to be the number one public speaker in the ministry of your field. You don't need that. You just need we have that same type of intrinsic reward of
Yeah.
impacting the few and the ones that want to be impacted, that see the value.
Yeah,
And
you don't
that's
have
something
to-
that we share together.
Absolutely.
You don't have to like fit a mold. You don't have like you obviously like want to restore dignity and like create like promote men to be fathers, but like dude, you just got to be Jordan.
Yeah.
Like being
Amen.
Jordan's going to do all those things. It's going to take care of itself over time. It's going to inspire the hell out of other people, just like you've set the world on fire with us. Like
Thanks, man.
that's literally what it is, man. It's just like you got to look inward and be yourself. And the way you kind of unpack more about yourself is a lot of like through that struggle, like you said, I think dying for God earlier, which is like a very intense way to say it. But
It is, but it's
like
real.
a great, but it's real. Hey,
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, it is going through that struggle that, or any struggle that will really unpack a lot about who you are. So
Appreciate it, brother.
I love that, man. I think it's gonna be awesome. I do want to touch on, like you said, like we've lost touch as men, as with manhood and human dignity.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, you look around our culture right now, and there's a lot of selfishness going on right now. A lot of ego, a lot of self-centered actions, and a good father and a good man. We all have examples of good fathers in our life, and what do? They put other people before themselves, and I think that was one of Christ's main messages in the Gospels. And Christ is the ultimate example of what manhood is and what, dignity is. And right now, you look at around our culture, and I think people have lost sight of that. I think and love is always the answer, in my opinion. I think everything that we do is an effort to receive and to give love. I think that's the ultimate desire in a person's heart. And I think men are created to give love and to receive love as well, but we're made to provide and to help and to serve other people. And I think that's just lacking right now. There's a lot of people who are really wrapped up in themselves right now, and that's just kind of the vibe that I'm getting around the culture and around people that I know. And I mean, not necessarily in our friend group or anything, but I want to help people see that giving and serving other people is not a negative thing. That's actually what we're created for. So
it's all about the give back. We talk
It
about
is.
that all the time, man. It's something that I guess doesn't really get realized right away, like
Early.
early. It's
Yeah.
just like when someone tells you, like, oh yeah, it's all about the give back. Like if you give back, you get more in return. It's like, great. I've served others before. It's not that fun sometimes.
No, it's
but
not.
like,
It's not.
but if you can find or formulate or look at it from a different perspective or a lens of like for example, like looking at this podcast is like giving to others.
It is.
As long as it's like truly giving to others, like that, I know that like the people that are listening to this podcast, or maybe someone that's listening right now that texts me and says, dude, you crushed that podcast with Jordan, like that just kind of gives me validation in a sense that I am giving back.
You are.
Like I know my dad's gonna love this podcast, and like that's already given me validation. But like that at that point, like that is the give back. Like I am actively giving back. I'm spending my time for others. Like that makes me so happy, and it's now easy for me to say that. So it is about the give back, but it is also finding that give back that's important to you.
Exactly. Yes, that's key. And that's the ultimate desire for both of you, I think, in this podcast is you want to help other people. You want to promote. You want to hear people's stories. And the ultimate desire behind all of that is you want to help other people. And I think that's awesome. It's beautiful. There's a really cool quote by St. John Paul II. He said, "Man only truly finds himself when he makes himself a total gift for other people." And I think it's hard, it's tough, but when you give, of yourself for the good of other people, what is actually good for another person. When you give of yourself for that cause, that's what brings us ultimate fulfillment. And that's what I believe.
It's freaking awesome,
It's
man.
freaking awesome.
I love it, dude.
And when you mentioned going down to Orlando and being impacted by people's stories, I mean, that resonates with Deck and I to the fullest.
Yeah.
We are trying our best to illuminate people's stories in positive, inspirational ways so that a listener feels like they can do the same.
It's beautiful, man.
And
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool that we have the opportunity to do that on a daily basis, twice today. Once with Brooklyn, great friend of ours for 5 years who's doing some awesome stuff. Yeah. And now we get to sit down with another great friend doing awesome stuff. And the way we've kind of gone about this whole thing of restoring dignity, if you will, in our own unique way.
We're restoring dignity. We'll say it. We'll go live on this podcast saying we do that.
We could go on and say that by asking the average quality. It's by looking. We literally ask the average quality to take us off of this back pocket pedestal that sometimes people put us on because we put out all this content, and sometimes people look at us like we're better. But in reality, we're far from it. Yeah. And we reiterate that on a consistent basis with this average quality question. And you know the drill at this point.
Yep.
We've talked about it for 2.5 years with you, and you've heard Coach Kaczynski go, O-line, wildly average. So Jordan, what's your average quality?
Oh man, so I thought about it a lot, and this specific quality about me is just really infuriating at times. But for me, it is inability to have consistency with my nutrition. It's obviously wildly average, but when I was playing, my nutrition was usually pretty spot on. But now that I'm like done playing, I'll like have a diet plan for a couple weeks, and I'm just like on fire for it, and I'm doing great. And I'll totally just get like uninterested. So it's like a 2-week like ratio where I'm doing good, and then I'll get back to like eating Domino's pizza. It's like, so I'm just wildly inconsistent and incredibly average with the food I'm putting in my body. I'd like to like be more consistent with it. But I'm always like on the move and like traveling and like doing different stuff. So it's just like, it's been really challenging to like have a consistent, nutritional plan. But that inconsistency kind of like rubs off on other places in my life. So I'd probably just say inconsistency in general. So
I like to tag it as, for me personally, it's been the sparks of inspiration with the fleeting inspiration. Like I always get these like, all right, I'm locked in, I can grind for 6 hours for 3 weeks, and then there's like a 4-day period where it's just like the production level just hits an all-time low. And that can happen in nutrition, that can happen in content creation and sleep and every aspect and it all falls in at different parts, and then sometimes it comes at all at the same point, and you're like, holy shit, I'm crashing.
Exactly.
Well, and I think like to that point, it's like recognizing what's going on around you or what's going on inside your own mind in those times where you are crushing it or when you are not crushing it.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
For me, it's a weekly thing where it's like I love messing up a Tombstone Pizza on like a Friday night when I know it, but like I only know that's okay if I am consistently getting my 4 to 5 workouts every week, and I'm waking up at 5 every morning to go to work out, and I'm following the consistent regimen that I set myself out on. So like you can almost like schedule the inconsistency if we're going like strict nutrition route. Like you can plan that inconsistency within your own diet. I always thought Tommy Becker said it best, like there's something like where about eating like a burger with your buddies on a Friday night that releases so much more positivity and motivation to then triple down the next time you go through your diet plan. And it's not like it's shitty food like what Greg Ebosh eats with his keto diet. I mean, like, God bless the kid for all he's worth. But like we can't like that is an extreme version of dedication to a diet where it's like you don't have to be that crazy. Like just dedicate yourself consistently over time. It's fun to recognize those things, man. Just simply recognize that you're bad at it, and like it's a thrill to ride that roller coaster.
Absolutely. And I feel like even with nutrition or like even my sleeping patterns or even workout routines at times, I'm either like all in or like really struggling. So like this week has been a struggle, but like next week I'll freaking turn it on and I'll be like absolutely spot on with everything.
Are you doing like different workouts nowadays? Now that we're not bulking for football.
I am, yeah.
What are you doing?
When I was in Seattle, I did a lot more high intensity stuff, high intensity training, kind of moderate, lighter weight, but function based movements that you're making sure everything's like firing properly. So I did a lot of cardio based stuff, mobility training, but nothing that ever like got me sore or like absolutely tired where I couldn't work out the next day. So I would activate like all my muscle groups every day. And it's more like fatigue training. So you're doing high intensity cardio based training to fatigue, but you're not necessarily ever working or tearing your muscles to the point where you can't get out of bed the next day, So if I did squats, it would be more like 3x12 or 3x20, but it would be moderate weight, moving it quick, moving it right. And then the next day you could do the same thing because you're not sore.
Right.
It's more fatigue training more than anything. But now that I'm back with the meats in my house.
Bunch of meats, dude.
Yeah.
Got a lot of meat sticks in that house of yours, dude.
I might be having to pick up some heavy weight here in the next couple months.
Hey, man.
Speaking of Keto Bosch, he is lifting heavy right now.
I worked out with him, 3 mornings in a row.
He's probably showing off a little bit.
Maybe, yeah, probably.
I heard I heard after he does his last set of squats that he rips his shirt off and screams loud. Is that true?
I haven't seen that yet, but
Okay.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I've heard myths, and I've heard that he like goes through a lot of shirts.
I believe it. Yeah, he goes hard, man.
Wow.
So does Steve-O. I mean, Steve is looking great right now.
Always.
Shout out Steve Harrell.
He has not skipped a beat since graduating football.
No,
still looks the same.
No. Yeah, I took a little hiatus from training for a while.
So I went a year.
Yo, he went a year, dude.
I literally lost all of my football weight.
I think that's
And now
so
I actually
funny.
remember that.
Yeah.
That was great.
You gave me a lot of shit. You're like, you're
I
looking
did.
skinny, boy. And now I'm just
Skinny ass
normal.
looking
Like
ass.
I put on like a couple pounds of muscle, and now I'm just like average Joe.
All right,
I
so
feel
now that
good.
you're back in town, I mean, Andrew and I just
Go.
gave us looked each other in the eye. We're like, we gotta take Jordan to Altar. You coming?
7
yeah,
free days you can
7 free days.
Absolutely.
5:30 or 6:30, whatever a.m.
Yeah,
typically
I'm
is
down.
when we go.
get.
definitely down.
He works at 5:30. I work out at 6:30. So,
So pick your poison.
I'm
pick your
down.
poison.
Probably go 6:30, but yeah, I'm
Hell
down.
yeah. Hell
No
yeah.
one ever wants to work out with me, dude.
Yeah, you're crazy. But nutrition and sometimes some inconsistency is your average quality.
Yeah.
Next question is, what's in your back pocket? This is something when pressure becomes stress and anxieties
Mhm.
arise, and this is what you use to overcome these situations.
I kind of hit on it earlier, but for me, it's always been, and it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's always been love, and love in terms of my identity being rooted in God and having and receiving the love from Him, and just being secure in that relationship, and then also my relationship with my friends that I love dearly. You guys had Chad Greenway on the pod last week, and he said that his wife was so huge in his walk and that love that they had together. And I think that's very similar for me. Is just when things get tough, when you're in a high stress situation, what do you rely on? For me, it's relationship and love and communion with God more than anything. So like, for example, when we played St. John's and there's 30,000 people and everyone's kind of looking at you and stakes are high, you're going to touch the ball 25 times a game. For me, it was like how I prepared for that game is I spent a lot of time in prayer the day before and the even day before that, and really just grounded myself in that relationship. And when I went out on the field, it was peaceful. Didn't let the crowd get to me. And you're kind of in communion out there, and that was what got me through, was the love there and the love for my teammates and the love for my brothers, So
It's freaking awesome.
it sounds
dude.
cheesy, but it's
Dude,
love, man.
It's real. That's
love
the
is
best part.
powerful, baby.
Yeah. Amen to that, man.
So
Yeah, we like to say love is your boys, because I
Yeah.
mean it's okay. Love is your boys. Yeah, that's like a funny cheesy term for just like your friends and
Mhm.
stuff. But I mean, it is so important. Like,
It is.
we're, like you said, you go back to the point of, like, what are we really built to do? It's like we were engineered to, like, be these specific, these people that were all in communion collaborating together. Like,
Exactly.
what brought us to become, like, the most dominant species from these cavemen
Yeah.
to now these people that are recording podcasts?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right?
What was it? It was the creation of, these perceived, or not even perceived, but, like, maybe even actual things in stories that brought people together to do good. Religion.
Exactly.
What brought people together to, want to compete, want to do more things, and we conceived the dollar and the currency, and we created democracy to then make sure everything was fair or just.
Mhm.
And then we created capitalism to then have the competition and create the market to which we all find ourselves in. Like, these are all things that we thought of ourselves. These are all things that we all perceived and conceived. And over these 10,000, 15,000 years that we've done it, man, look at us now.
Look at us now.
And we're still talking
Yeah.
about the same thing that what we started with, which is that love for each other,
Yep.
that ultimate care, and the giving of ourselves for
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah, man. We're made to be in communion, and we're made to be, and like I said, we're made to give of ourselves and to be in communion with those that we're appointed to serve. And we're all appointed to serve very specific people. And that was decided a long time ago. And, like, I think that is our why. That's our why. And for me, the most important question for a man is, like, who are you? But your mission and your why should be to serve the people that you're appointed to serve.
Who is Jordan?
I'm a beloved son of God.
There you go.
That's who I am.
Love it, dude.
And you're challenging you're challenging yourself every day with that.
Absolutely.
And that is the coolest thing,
Yeah.
right? You're trying to make yourself a better person through that.
Mm-hmm.
And through this podcast, we challenge ourselves every day to grow. And we do that through the Jordan Network. So we would love for you to challenge us if there's a best friend that you want us to have on. We already had Keenan Lodge on, so you can't challenge us with him.
You can, yeah.
We had Keenan on, who's the stud. We had to actually do
He's
2
baller.
interviews with him because I
don't know, YouTube,
we screwed up the first one, so we had to call him back and do
man.
another hour and a half with Keenan, which was phenomenal the second
I
time.
bet he was super cool about it.
Oh, he was the best.
he loved
He's a
it.
baller.
Yeah.
He loved it.
I want to get him on again in person because he's a changed man, and he's
Oh my
he's a
gosh!
stud now.
If anyone's a
Or he
changed
was.
man,
Yeah.
Kean Loggy.
Kean Loggy.
Shout out,
Loggy,
man.
dude.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh, it's
He's
priceless.
doing it, man.
He
He's
is doing
living.
it. Season 2, that was over a year ago. Season 2, like episode 20 something.
Yeah, it was
maybe.
around this time.
Right around this time
Yeah.
last year.
Pretty funny.
I just think it's so cool that, like, even 2 years ago he was going out with us in St. Paul and, like, came and stayed with us, and now he's living in Columbia and, like, doing his own thing, man.
Yeah,
It's, like,
Workout
he's
stuff. Like, how
crazy.
cool is that?
crazy.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh man.
But
But anyways.
yeah. So
Okay.
who do you challenge us to have on the show?
So can I do 2?
Sure.
Is that
course,
all right? So first one, I want to shout out to Malik Turner, receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. Got to know him pretty well, and like I said before, he knows Gabe Green really well. He's got some St. Thomas ties. Really, really good person, amazing man, and he's going to be a really good football player this year. I think he's got a big role in the Seahawks offense next year.
A little fantasy football insight. I like that.
Seriously, yeah. So I would really like to shout out to him to see if he would be interested, because he would be a great guy to have, and I know that he would be interested in doing it. So I want to throw the invite out to him. Another one would be my spiritual director, Father Kelly. You guys know Father Kelly.
Yeah.
He was very, very close with the St. Thomas football team throughout my time. He's a big fan. He's an amazing person. I think you guys would really appreciate his
He's the guy who runs Last Chance Mass, right?
That's Father Becker. So he's the
goddamn.
rector of our seminary.
Okay.
Either two of those guys would be
Yeah.
like phenomenal on this
Yeah.
pod, dude.
I
Because
got
they
to-
have some
yeah.
cool stories.
I got to know Father Becker, dude. He's the man. But
He's
Kelly,
hilarious.
I've heard great things.
So I'm actually gonna do 3: Father Kelly, Becker, or Malik Turner. So,
Okay.
Sweet.
Yeah, those
Awesome
are my
challenge
boys.
accepted.
That's a
Yeah.
laundry list.
Yeah.
I love it. That's
Sorry,
3 full
boys,
weeks
but-
of podcast.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's
Thank
almost
you,
a month.
That's almost a month.
Well, they
Thanks,
have
Jordan.
they have some like amazing stories, especially Father Kelly. Like his decision to like choose priesthood over where he was in his life is like really cool. So
Cool, man.
Yeah.
I love that, man. And so we've been peppering you with questions all day, and I'll be honest, we crushed it. Like
Thanks,
this
bro.
was already an hour and 20 of action packed. If you're still with us, it's only going to get better. Jordan, do you
Here
have
we
any questions for us?
Honestly, I don't have anything too specific right now.
Yeah, you basically live with us.
I know,
So
I'm
like
so
you see us all the
connected with
time.
y'all,
It's
yeah.
like you can ask us whenever, but maybe something that the listeners might want to know that you might already know the answer to or something.
Oh man, I'm really struggling here, boys.
Does Maddie C have any questions?
'Cause I know you guys so well. What?
What did you just call me? Got a little stupid in him. Jeez.
That's tough.
Was not expecting that, Matt. Holy cow.
Boys, how are you guys planning on expanding from here on forward? That's kind of a very broad question, but like, where do you guys see the pod a year from now?
Well, I mean, like what I want it to be is obviously like us full time in the grind and like scaling this impact, because I love what we're doing right now on this 5 to 9 hustle, and we're like really finding a good purpose of like and a good consistent schedule of production, and there's a lot of good back end stuff, but just like the ability that Andrew and I are now realizing that we're locked in listeners. We're getting better at speaking. We're, heads in the dictionary, learning the English language.
Yeah.
But like we're starting to realize like, okay, of communicating a message of doing what you love, and that is something that we can scale to impact more people.
No
and like you
doubt.
said, like we're built to give, and if I can give to more people, then we've done it.
Amen.
And we're going to continue to do it.
Mhm.
So
That's awesome.
scaling the impact full time is really where I want to be in a year.
Cool. I really want to encourage you guys to just keep going. I feel like you guys are like really close to just breaking out, man.
I hope.
And I just have that vibe. I don't know where it's coming from, but I've had it for a while. I think this is going to be a big time thing. So keep
Thank you,
doing
man.
it.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And we build it off guys like you, man. I
That's
mean, like
exactly
that's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, Andrew and I are growing and we're operating in the confines of podcasting, but like what makes us better, or what makes us unique, or what makes us whatever we are the people we have on, such as yourself, and the relationships we have outside of this podcast, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But for any new listeners right now, I want to know from your perspective, like what for your friends and family that are tuning in, what would be a good podcast for them to listen to?
There's a really good podcast called The Order of Man that I'm a big fan
One of our podcasts, Jordan.
Oh,
But we could do Order of Man as well.
I thought you said other podcasts.
Oh no, sorry. I mean other podcasts, like episodes of the Backpocket.
I'm so sorry.
I want to keep them. I want to keep them in the
fumble.
funnel, dude.
That's a big
But
fumble.
Order of Man, shout out to Order of the Man. We
Yeah,
can also
just-
get them there.
Yeah,
But
we like that podcast. We support that podcast.
We support that podcast.
We appreciate
Absolutely.
all
We're
that
a
they do.
pro
Oh,
Order
man.
of Man podcast for sure.
Yeah.
But like we got them here in the funnel, dude. Like let's keep them here while we got them.
That's
so
my
like
bad.
who else? Are,
That was a
like, they're
fumble
gonna-
on the 10-yard line, bro. That was bad. Misheard the question.
Dude, no, but
no,
when he said that question, I was like, Jordan is going to take this as if it's another podcast.
I blew it.
So I put that on this man,
No,
Tiny Rick.
I'll
over
take
here.
responsibility.
Yeah, Tiny Rick, Tiny Deck got that wrong because he's got a tiny brain, dude. Tiny muscles now.
Oh man. Okay.
But anyways, any other
So-
episodes that we could push him and keep him involved in Backpocket?
Dude, to be honest with you, I thought the last podcast with your father was super powerful.
Marketing Intern Spotlight number 44, John and
Yeah,
Sarah.
dude.
See you there.
That was powerful. I think the one with Kian was really great, and yeah, I'll stick with those two.
Sweet.
I think Kian and your dad.
Yeah, those definitely those two will give our listeners, the new listeners, and that's the coolest part, right? You came on the show and you get to bring in your whole community into the Backpocket, and those that maybe vibe with us will stick around and listen to another one.
Yeah.
And Kian Laji really speaks to the versatility of how we can handle a conversation, and then my dad is a reflection of our growth.
Totally.
So those great recommendations. Thank you for that, Jordan.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And finishing on this final note. Yeah, you're good, dude.
Don't feel bad about
High
it.
and
man.
tight.
High and tight.
Final question, simple question. What did you learn today from the moment that you woke up to and we're having this conversation?
I'd say the biggest thing I learned is how to really be more thankful for the situation that I'm in. I think like kind of thing I was struggling with is like, you know, you go from being in the NFL to back in the college atmosphere. You can kind of like let some thoughts in your head like, am I doing the right thing? Should I stay in the NFL? Because I didn't really tell you guys this, but I had like a full-time job opportunity to be in the NFL that I turned down to like be here.
Wow.
And so like that kind of came into my head a little bit. It's just, you know, are you doing the right thing? And I totally am. So I'm really trying. I've learned really to just trust where I'm at, and where I'm at is right. It's where I'm supposed to be, and just being like totally in the present moment and happy and at peace with where you're at. So
Love that.
Yeah,
I
bro.
love that we get
That's
to be there
awesome.
together
we're there together, baby.
Mhm.
We're here.
through and through. Thank you so much for joining the Back Pocket, Jordan.
Thank you, boys, for having me.
Well, I've been hanging on the west coast of my heart, right where I'm meant to from the start. It's so much warmer than the secrets you've been holding in. And don't you look at me sideways with those eyes, with those eyes, with those eyes, with those eyes.